All right, what's up? Welcome back, me Duole podcast listeners. Stuart Anderson for episode 25. We took a little break here over the summer, but we are back with one of the best episodes we've ever recorded. We bring on an athlete from the Challenged Athlete Foundation. Brandon Lyons shares his story about how he's interacted with Challenged Athletes Foundation, what the program is, what it's meant to him, what he's learned, and you'll hear from him, his story, as well as a few other guests, Kristie, Boltz, and Sean Jager. So grateful for this episode, thankful for the invitation at the end to participate with the Challenge Athletes Foundation. We're going to have a special event with them on August 19th, so look for the links, look for the ways that we're going to start working with them as a team, and hopefully you're inspired by Brandon and his awesome story. If you get a chance, you can watch him on the YouTube channel and see what this dude looks like. He is an elite athlete who is going to tell his story about how he rides and how he participates as a challenged athlete. So enjoy. Grateful to be back. Thankful for the team. And that's it. Take care. All right. Welcome, everybody, to Me Duole podcast. Stuart Anderson here after a short summer break. We're grateful to have you back. Episode 25. Just a few announcements before we introduce our guests. We're working on our final kit order of the year. Plan on kit pickup September 2nd. This will be the last time to get red kits. So we'll have something fun and lots of cool swag, hats and some shirts, especially from our Porter's Fork Challenge climb. I got those today. Oh man, they are sick. Big race last week. Sean, we survived. Oh man. That was terrible. So Mirror Lake Highway race last week. Big old Dave Sharp on top of the podium again, and Paul Watson with a close second in their division. And then Doug Brower on the podium in the Masters group. And then pretty fun. The team actually won the fastest team competition by having the four fastest riders. That was awesome. Sharp, Ben Brooks, Doug Brower, Jason Lang. So we had the four fastest combined times. Don't worry, it was only 150 miles, Kristie. So it was just a walk in the park. So join today if you're watching the YouTube channel. I'm on here with Chip. What's up, Chip?
Hey guys. Good to be
Brother
back.
Sean. Brother Sean's here, and then Kristie Boltz will introduce here, and then Brandon Lyons, and Kristie will introduce Brandon in one sec. So super grateful to have this crew on. But first, I wanted to introduce Kristie. If you know her from Salt Lake City, she hasn't lived here for a long time. And Kristie, I didn't know you when you lived here. And our association, the Crown Council, brought us together, which is really a funny thing, that a roundabout way that we've connected in a lot of different parts of life. But I've known her for probably close to 10 years. She's an avid cyclist and one of the real champions of finding like a true purpose behind why she rides. A real advocate for a group called the Challenge Athletes Foundation. She is 100% committed to this group, also known as, Sean, you say CAF, C-A-F? Is that like the proper term for Challenge Athletes Foundation?
Yeah, that's the beloved term, yes, CAF.
Okay. She has a prolific history with CAF, raising thousands upon thousands of dollars for this charity. And she'll tell a story about how she got involved with them. But whether it's through her bake sales, whether it's through the thousands of miles that she rides, her contagious enthusiasm, or never-ending smiles. Look, it doesn't stop. She can't stop. She is an advocate for this group, and we're so excited to talk about them and meet Brandon today and learn his story about being part of the Challenge Athletes Foundation. So with that, Kristie, will you introduce Brandon and maybe how we got onto this topic?
I think the most appropriate introduction for Brandon is that he has the biggest guns of the five of us, right?
Yes, he does.
You know, Brandon, it's funny because when you see people on Zoom, and for those of you who are listening in, I'll describe. Brandon's got his CAF shirt and he's tatted up, right? And he's got lacrosse stick in the background, and it looks like a Bengals football and Bill Walton's book. And he looks like he is ready to speak at a nationally televised event. And here we are on the podcast. So Thanks for showing up, my friend. Brandon and I met at the $1 Million Challenge. That is Challenge Athletes Foundation primary fundraiser every year, a 600+ mile ride from San Francisco to San Diego. That's where we met. That was not the first time Brandon was on a bike. That was not the first time I was on a bike. Brandon, you're 31. Did I do my math right? Okay. In 2014, Brandon dove into shallow water, like many of us have done many times at lakes and parties, and broke T5 and T6 and was paralyzed from the chest down. And for many people, that's the end of the story, my friends. And for Brandon and many of the athletes like him, that was the beginning. To the day, 3 years after that injury, he became the first hand cyclist to become a full-time resident at Colorado Springs for the Paralympic Training Center. He's participated in the $1 Million Challenge 3 times. He's a silver medalist at the 2019 World Championship. He is a 2-time silver medalist at the Pan American Games. He is currently pursuing an extremely lofty goal that I think everyone on the podcast will be thrilled to know. He is attempting to break the 24-hour world record for miles ridden on a hand cycle. And that's 410, my friends, 410. So all you loaded jet nuts out there who are like, oh my God, 206, and I don't think I can make it. It's like Brandon's going to crush 410 this October. And we're really excited. So Brandon, welcome. And thanks for being you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Brandon. Hey, maybe before we jump forward, Kristie and Sean, why don't you talk a bit about how this all started? Where did you guys get connected, and how did Challenge Athletes Foundation enter your life?
You want to go, Kristie, on that?
Yeah, this necklace that I'm wearing that you guys can't see, and believe it or not, is from 2009. I ran the Nike Women's Marathon. They give you a Tiffany necklace, so Tiffany jewelry will last a while. Yeah. 2009, Sarah Reinerston ran by me, blew my doors off in the Nike Women's Marathon. I had seen her miss the cutoff in Kona and come back and make the cutoff and become a Kona finisher. And Sarah Reinerston, you can Google her, had a big jersey on it that said CAF. And I went home after the Nike Women's Marathon and got online and looked and went, what's this organization all about? I was not a collegiate athlete. Sean and everyone else on this call will tell you I am not an exceptional athlete by any means. I am stubborn and will train like anybody else. And physical activity means so much to all of us for different reasons. Being active, I just could not imagine that someone could tell a kid, I'm sorry, because you don't have a prosthetic foot for soccer, you can't go to recess. And Challenge Athletes Foundation, my exposure to that generated this kind of enthusiasm that really has rocketed forward since my first participation in $1 Million Challenge in 2010. It rained every day. The first $1 Million Challenge I did, half the cyclists were from San Diego. They did not own rain gear. We woke up that morning in San Francisco and they said, are we still doing the ride? Because it's raining. And there were some challenge athletes there, in particular, Gil and Chris, who had both come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, losing their legs and getting their brain blown off, that were looking out the window going, guys, it's rain. I'm pretty sure we can still ride. And I thought it would be a one-time thing. I thought I would ride once, and we all have these bucket list races. And I went back in 2011 and 2012 and 2013 and 2014 and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I wanted to share that with others. And Sean joined us.
I did. And it was amazing. Do you want me to talk for a sec here, Kristie?
Yeah, man.
All right. So Kristie graciously, and I will forever be in her debt. I truly will, because it changed my life. It really did. It not just in cycling. I mean, especially us duales, it's cycling so much of our lives. And Stu and I talked about that a little bit this morning as we were out riding. But it's not everything. And it was the biggest thing to affect my life outside of religion, outside of working, anything like that. CAF changed me. And the reason is because of people like Brandon. And I can't wait for you to hear his story. That guy, from day one, I think we rode day one together down to Monterey. Is that right, Kristie? I think that's how it went. And it was tremendous. I mean, I was just amazed that we talked already about his guns. When you see Brandon on a bike, you will be blown away. This dude just flying up a hill, hand cycling, and you see these monster arms just turning those cranks. It was impressive. But just getting to talk to him and hear his story, and it changed me. That and Jamie, Jamie Whitmore, she's an unbelievable athlete, but an unbelievable person as well, and just a motivator. And you meet so many of these athletes, and you find out that there's a whole bigger world out there, even at age, 45, 46 at the time. This is in 2018 when we went, than I'd ever really known. And like I said, I'll forever be in debt to Kristie for her getting me a part of it. It's been big.
Nice. Kristie, maybe explain how it works. Challenge Athletes Foundation needs you to raise money for them. And I know that race that you're talking about requires a certain amount of giving in order to participate. Can you explain really how you're involved in connecting with the program, like what they ask of you?
The event is appropriately named the $1 Million Challenge because when it started 15 years ago, the idea was that there were going to be 100 cyclists, and each of those cyclists would commit to $10,000 fundraising minimum. Anytime you show up at an event and they throw down $10,000 as the minimum, there's an unwritten expectation there. Okay. At that time, I was in my 30s. I had looked at that number and said, I don't know that I'm going to be able to raise this kind of money. And showing up and seeing the impact that a grant can have on someone's life, a child, an adult, someone who you may consider an exceptional athlete who's been faced with an injury, someone who discovers athletics later in life, and then to realize if someone took away my ability to ride a bike, I just want you to all to close your eyes for a minute while you're listening and think, if for the next 90 days, somebody said, you can't ride, forget that. Say, you know what, for the rest of your life, this thing that you love, you can't do that anymore. It would devastate us in so many ways. And so CAF exposed me to the fact that, a prosthetic running leg is $10,000. So raising $1 million is a significant amount of money. And it's also not at the same time. And at the end of that race, I call it a race. It's really a ride, right, Sean?
That's right.
Okay. There are no Strava segments. There are no prizes for getting to San Diego first. Okay.
Yes, there are.
Although Brandon and Sean may tell you about that over Mount Soledad.
Big. Yeah.
I just became addicted to this idea. And for me, Sean has shared one of my big philosophies in life is to pedal it forward. And one of my big philosophies comes from that event because there were people at that event who could have easily left me. I was not, knowing what I know now, I was not appropriately in shape for that length of an event. I look back and kind of laugh, but I wouldn't change it for the world. And since then, the fundraising minimum has been raised. And really every year, I think our biggest year, 100 people raised almost $2 million.
Wow.
It's substantial. And to know that you get to San Diego, and Sean, you can probably, and Brandon can express the feeling as you come into La Jolla Cove, and there are children of all ages with all different disabilities running around, playing together because you were willing to ask your friends to donate to an organization that if you couldn't ride your bike anymore, how would you feel? And to be able to provide that opportunity to compete When CAF was founded, it was all about getting people from the sideline to the starting line. For Brandon, we've gone way beyond that. This is getting past the starting line to getting to the podium. Because just because you have a disability or an injury doesn't take away your competitive desire. It doesn't take away your desire to crush someone else on a Strava segment. That doesn't go away just because you get hurt. And I think Brandon could probably talk to us more about that. But you see that, and your life is changed in such a powerful way that you want to do more. And that's why we've continued to go back and say, hey, you know what? We can raise 20,000. Hey, we can raise 40,000. I think we could probably raise like $100,000. And this year with COVID missing out last year, our goal is 200 grand.
That's so awesome. And this is, if I can interject, maybe part of the crux of what we're doing here today, which is introducing this program, how Mi Duole can be involved. And we're going to have some things, invitations at the end for different ways that you can be involved with Challenge Athletes Foundation. And Brandon's story, we thought, would be a very fitting way to inspire this team to get involved and connect with all the amazing things that Sean and Kristie have talked about. So with that, is that a good introduction, Brandon? I don't know how, I'm sure you've done this before. You want to take it away, dude, and give it to us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me. I think Kristie and Sean really hit a lot of it on the head there. But Kristie early mentioned that, I was injured back in 2014. But if you kind of rewind, back to that, Kristie had said, giving CAF was providing, athletes like myself an opportunity to get back into sport and to kind of keep living that competitive, lifestyle. So I grew up, I was a multi-sport athlete through high school. I played lacrosse a couple of years at Penn State and college. So, competitive athletics was always a part of me. And it was something that I was always, very passionate about. And I graduated college in 2012 from Penn State and, kind of put athletics to the, kind of behind me and was really focused on, how was I going to make an impact in the business world? I always, was kind of envisioning myself of, going to a professional services firm and, making my name that way. And was very fortunate enough that I landed a job with Ernst & Young down in the Washington, D.C. area in 2012. So graduated, moved down there and, was lifting on the side and was still always athletic. And, one of those, bucket list items was I wanted to go to run my first marathon, right? I was kind of transitioning from, team sports into, weekend warrior type stuff and just kind of wanted to check that bucket list item off. But as I was approaching and kind of going through my training on Memorial Day weekend, I went down to Ocean City, Maryland with some friends and some coworkers and mistakenly dove into shallow water and broke my back at the T5 and T6 vertebrae. So right around your mid-chest area, right below your sternum. So, just imagine yourself, I was 24 years old at the time. I remember just, sitting in the water, motionless, really helpless, and looking up to my friends, telling them that, I wasn't able to move, immediately lost all sensation of everything, right? And just kind of thinking of so many different thoughts going through your head of, what is the future going to hold? And I remember telling my friends that I needed them to, come in and pull me out of the water. I just wasn't capable of doing it. And at first their initial reaction was, okay, stop joking, stand up, let's just get out of the water. And it wasn't until the second, third time that I started to really reiterate that, no, this is serious. I'm not able to stand up. And I had jumped off of a 10-foot pier and the water was about 3 feet deep. I'm 6'3" as a guy, so pretty tall guy. So a little over double the, depth of the water. And at that time of day, couldn't see the bottom of the ocean. Boats were floating. It was kind of just that fluke accident. And I tell so many people, 9 times out of 10, I would have done that really any weekend. I was always, active and kind of doing things like that. But, at that time, there was a lot of, I would say not panic, but just really that uncertainty of what was going to go on. I was still so young, only 24 years old. And it really didn't sink in until I was airlifted from Ocean City, Maryland to get into Baltimore to have surgery. And I remember the dispatcher being on the phone with my mom and me telling her that I was paralyzed, right? I was comprehending the situation at that time, but it was really starting to sink in as I was, vocalizing it out loud to my family through the phone. And, like any mother would, then being an only child, she immediately pushed back to say, we don't know what the, diagnosis is. You're just saying this right now. We have to wait till we see you. And I think a lot of it was her not wanting to accept it, but then just also, again, that uncertainty of not knowing what's going on. So was airlifted to Baltimore Shock Trauma Center, was to go and have immediate surgery. But unfortunately, the helicopter that came to airlift me didn't have enough gas to get from the beach where I had actually sustained the injury to get me to the Shock Trauma Center in Baltimore to have immediate surgery. And for anyone that knows a spinal cord injury, any type of neurological trauma, it's very important that you get in and have the surgery as soon as you possibly can to have any best chance at a recovery. So unfortunately, we didn't have enough gas. So I got in later that night than expected. They didn't have the specialized crew that they needed to perform the surgery. So I waited an additional day for the surgery, sat there with a broken back, and my T5 and T6 vertebrae were completely burst until I could have the surgery the next morning. So it was about that time that when the helicopter refueled from Salisbury to get me to the Shock Trauma Center, that's when I kind of fell out of consciousness. I woke up to just being surrounded by family, friends, coworkers, a huge support system all around me. And again, to really reassure, okay, this is very serious, right? I mean, when you see all of your loved ones in a hospital setting, something bad happened. So it was really then when it started to sink in. But being an athlete my entire life, I looked at it as, this was an injury. Right. I understood what I wasn't capable of doing at that time, the same as what I wasn't capable of doing in the helicopter. But okay, like I've, broken a bone or, twisted an ankle. Okay, give me a few weeks to a few months and I'll be back up on my feet in no time. That was kind of the mindset that I had very early on. So was in the inpatient hospital for about 2 weeks, and then was then transported from the hospital itself to an inpatient rehab facility, which was about 20 minutes away. And that's whenever, you're surrounded by a lot of people that are in very similar situations as yourself. And it's really more starting to sink in. But again, at that mindset was, okay, I'm going to get through this, right? I was still just so young. It was not going to happen. And I always remember, two really, life-changing moments. And I think a lot of it has really changed my perspective on life. It was very early on when the doctor came in at the rehab center and really gave the diagnosis to myself and my parents at the time and said, you only have a 1% chance that you're ever going to walk again. And my immediate thought was, well, you didn't say 0%. So you essentially were giving me 1% chance. There was a chance that I was going to be able to walk again, right? And that was my perspective. That was the mindset that I was going to continue to just push forward with life, right? I wasn't going to let myself, or I wasn't going to let someone else, especially a doctor that I didn't know, place any limits, on what I was capable of. So that was kind of what really helped me, transition and kind of navigate through those very difficult times early on. And then speaking about perspective, I remember one of the first weeks that I was in there, we went down into this rec room and we were going through, all of our rehab. And at that time, I was having trouble just sitting up and getting out of the hospital bed. And you're going in there and, trying to relearn and really gain any type of independence and really just learn that new normal. That's what we just heard every single day. It was just kind of, pushed into you about just little things that everyone takes for granted, right? It was, take it like an hour just to get dressed, right? Trying to put my shoes on, trying to put pants on, right? Everything that everyone takes for granted just took so much time and was so difficult, right? Just exhausting. And we came out into this rec room and I remember I saw a woman, she was probably my age, around like mid-20s at the time. And she was in a motorized wheelchair. She was completely paralyzed from the neck down. So she was a quadriplegic, had no use of her arms or her hands. She was moving around and navigating the wheelchair through a puff and sip straw. So she was pushing her way around just by pushing on this little straw that then controlled the wheelchair. And we were talking and she's like, oh, what happened to you? How did you get in here? And I told her that I dove into shallow water. broke my back, and I had asked her the same question, and she had the exact same, cause of injury, right? So there she was, around the same age. She dove into shallow water. Fortunately enough for myself, I only broke my back. So I had full control, full, independence of my upper body, right? So I could become independent. And then there she was, a quadriplegic. And, that was really an aha moment to go, oh my gosh, I really need to be grateful for what I do have, because I quickly learned that, really in any aspect of life, you're seeing someone that you just look at that next tier right above you and say, I just wish I had that. And I could see it in her eyes that she was thinking, why wasn't that me? Right. And it's funny to kind of step back and say, oh my gosh, why couldn't I have broken my back? But it's that, perspective of, oh my gosh, I just wish I just had a little bit more. So that was a huge moment for myself, and the kind of pushing forward to, okay, I really need to become grateful for really what I do have. So, over that next month, I was in the inpatient hospital and just trying to regain any type of independence and normalcy, and was discharged from the hospital a month after being in there. And again, at 24 years old, had to relocate and then move back into my parents. So, being in the mid-20s, that really the real true independence of your life, right? Like starting that next chapter, coming out of college, and I was financially independent, and now I'm under the roof of my parents, and having to depend and rely on so many people just to get through the day. I think that was the biggest challenge, was just losing that independence, because I was such an independent person my entire life, right? So that was a struggle for me. And one of the, I think, life-altering events or kind of activities that helped me kind of get through that was truly finding sport again, right? And when I was in the hospital, I was introduced to a rec therapist who showed me this handcycle, right? So anyone that doesn't know what a handcycle is, it's a recumbent bike that you're laying down on your back, you're pedaling with your arms. So the cranks are right in front of your face, pedaling with your arms together, your feet are out front. It's a 3-wheel bike. So the front wheel is the drive wheel, of a regular bike. And I saw this bike and I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of neat. Something to, just get active again and try to just build up strength on my upper body. So I had family and friends put together a fundraiser, and the first week that I arrived home, the handcycle was there waiting for me. So it was just a way to get active again. And I remember the first time I took the bike out, it was so difficult just to get it out of the driveway and go down the street. And then it would have been so easy just to give up and say, this is stupid. This is so difficult. But I was just intrigued by it. When I saw it, it was just another challenge. And I remember the second time I took it out, we went to this small little island in central PA, and I did 20 miles around this loop. I just kept going to 20 miles. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. If I could do 20 miles, just a month after being laid up in a hospital bed hurt, I'm going to be able to accomplish anything that I want. And I immediately thought of, okay, I was still registered for this Marine Corps marathon that was down in DC. I wonder if they have a handcycle division, or if they would allow me to go compete in the race in the handcycle. It was always a bucket list item that I wanted to check off. So I was fortunate enough. I called up the marathon organizer, and they loved the story. They wanted me to come down, and we're able to transition and switch my registration over from a runner into a handcycle. So just 4 months after I was hurt, I went down and was able to toe the line again. And I had my family that was down there, with the big bucket list item that when I crossed the finish line, I was able to actually check it off. Unfortunately, the race did not go as smoothly as I had hoped. At that time, I was not a cyclist, right? I didn't know anything about, flat tires or equipment, right? Everything I was on was just stock. I was just excited to be there, right? And rewind it, the night before, I was at the Penn State Ohio State game that went into double overtime. So I was in Happy Valley, about 4 hours away from DC, until 2 a.m. The race started at 6:30 a.m. So I'm on no sleep. We go, the race starts, and I'm about 10 miles through the marathon, and my parents are tracking me through the app. I'm like, oh, he's doing so well. And we get to about mile 12, mile 13, and they're like, why is he stopped? And I had a flat tire on the drive wheel, right? So now I'm parked over on the side, and the way that the handcycle division starts is they go ahead of all of the runners just because of the time, right? We could do a marathon in close to an hour. right? So averaging around 25 or so miles an hour. And now I'm stopped. So now I'm like, okay, I remember I call my parents and I, quickly tell them what happened, that I have this flat tire and I don't know what to do. Like, well, you only have two options. Like, you can wait there until all the runners come and we'll come pick you up, or, you can just kind of find someone to help you. I'm like, okay, neither one of those are going to work. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to go finish this 13 miles on a flat tire on the drive. So here I am, I'm, just pedaling, maybe going 2 miles an hour. And now the next thing that I hear is I see the truck with the big clock for all of the runners, because now the elite runners are coming. And I hear the truck say, the Kenyans are coming. And I immediately turn around and like, here are the fastest of the fastest marathon runners now passing me as I'm pushing to go through. Did that for the next, like I said, like 12 miles or so. But it was just so worth it towards the end. Again, it was kind of reassuring everything in my head that, there's going to be all of these challenges and all this type of adversity. And I was so, proud that I didn't let this, stop me from what I wanted to achieve. Right. I always had that bucket list item of, crossing off and saying that I was able to complete a marathon. Right. So it was that mindset change and, just that sense of resiliency that helped me early on. And as I, look forward to, where it's gotten me today, a lot of those things, helped propel me, right? So going through those experiences really propelled me into, the athlete that I've become today and really the person that I've become today. To, Kristie's point before, it was all about just getting to the starting line. And at that time, I didn't really know of elite, para athletics or, adaptive athletics. I had heard of the Paralympics, never had seen the Paralympics. And I always remember that when I was in the hospital, all of my friends came in like, oh, you're going to go to the Paralympics. I was like, you're damn right I'm going to go to the Paralympics. Because that was, again, me being ignorant of, not knowing what it takes to get there, not, understanding how challenging it really is. That was my mindset. I was like, oh, I'm actually going to do it. And when I had an opportunity to come out to the training center, I went through, a 2-week trial in 2017. I was like, oh my gosh, like to really see how these elite athletes train full time, how fast they are to go to these races. It was really eye opening, but it was also super motivating. And it was something that I wanted to do, right? It was, for me, it was about finding my purpose and finding something that I was passionate about. Right. So, I went through this 2-week tryout, and at the time, Team USA, they had just finished up in Rio in 2016. So they had some athletes that were retiring, and they were looking to, develop the next generation of athletes leading up to Tokyo in 2020. So at that time, I was extended an invitation to come out to the training center in Colorado Springs to be a full-time resident. And it was so interesting enough that I was injured May 24th, 2014, and I moved into the training center 3 years exactly to the date on May 24th, 2017. So it was such a surreal moment. And again, it was just so motivating to be there. Same training center of, people like Katie Ledecky, Michael Phelps, all of those people lived and trained full time. So it was such a proud moment. It's just an amazing opportunity to have. So I did that, and I was living out there from 2017 up to 2019 until the pandemic happened. And throughout those years, it was like every single year I was just putting in the work and just seeing, the improvement year over year. And I was seeing this goal of mine that I wanted to be able to get to Tokyo, that I was seeing it come into fruition, and was peaking in 2019, performing well. And as we got into 2020, I was peaking right in March, and then the games were postponed, unfortunately, which pushed it out one more year. And then fast forward to 2021, I had to relocate out of the training center because it shut down. And again, it was at that same time as we were leading into trials in March, unfortunately came down with, terrible infection that put me on antibiotics for nearly 3 months leading into trials. So, again, wasn't going to give up and just wanted to still, have the opportunity to really see this through. I put in so much time over the last 4 years that, I was going to show up to the starting line regardless and just give it my all. And unfortunately that day it wasn't enough. But again, I didn't look at it as a failure. I think I've gone through so many types of adversity that it was just a way of kind of seeing it as an opportunity to grow and develop and really to try to, be really my best self leading into Paris of 2024. So going to give it another go for a few years as we get to Paris in 2024, but circling back kind of to CAF and to MDC, I had done that race or done the event for the past 3 years leading up to it. So I was introduced to CAF. I lived out in San Diego shortly in 2015, right after I was injured, and was briefly introduced to CAF, but never got involved. At that time, wasn't really, hand cycling or in the adaptive sports, world, quickly right after. But one of my teammates that, Sean had mentioned, Jamie, at one of our events had, kind of wrote me into this. There was this ride that you ride from San Francisco to San Diego. And again, at this time, I had just gotten into racing, was nowhere near as fit as I am now. I'm like, oh, I want to do that. And I can remember just seeing in their eyes, they're like, I don't know if you can do this. And I remember even the cycling organizer at the event was asking around. He's like, do you know this guy, Brandon Lyons? Like, do you think he can do this? Like, not a lot of hand cyclists ride the entire route. Like, do you think he's able to do this? And, Jamie had vouched for me. He's like, oh, if you give him an opportunity, he's going to do it. And that's kind of the way that I went into it. I was like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to ride every single mile of this thing. So that first year was just an awesome experience riding from San Francisco to San Diego. And I think like Kristie mentioned, like Sean mentioned, it was after that first event where when it concluded, right, it was like it truly opened up my eyes to, the impact that CAF can have, the impact that I can have supporting CAF, but how much of a close-knit community it was, how much of a family it was, right? It's almost like you're going away to, summer camp, and whenever it ends, you just miss being with them, right? And, you just look forward to that next year. But, throughout the entire year, it's just all about, supporting CAF. They've done so much for, athletes like myself, but then, really younger generations as well, as giving them an opportunity to get into sport, right? To Kristie's point of, some of these younger people that, years back, there wasn't even access to sport at their age, and to see how much sport has impacted my life after a traumatic injury, to, be a young kid and be told that you're not able to, compete, or, there's not a future in athletics, I think is just terrible. So, CAF does a great job of, empowering athletes of all abilities.
Nice. Kristie, Chip, Sean, what questions do you have for Brandon? I'd love to explore if anything that you guys wanted to ask him.
Yep. So Brandon, where are you now? You reside where right now, and training is ongoing right now, or are you heading to Colorado Springs again?
Yeah, so I live in St. Augustine, Florida. I moved here last year, so I've been out here for a year now. Moved out of the training center. So at the time, whenever the pandemic happened, there's usually around like anywhere from 200 to 300 athletes that are in and out of that place on a daily basis. And right before I left, there were 13. So I was one of the very last people to be there until it opened up again. It was just that uncertainty. But I'll be out here full time through this year. Next year with the season, we'll have to see what happens, as people are going through Tokyo right now. But as next year, I'll probably go in. I bought a home down in Florida, so I was closer to family and things like that as well. But I'll probably do a couple of shorter stints out in Colorado to get some elevation training and to be closer to the team.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be starting that elevation training in a few short weeks.
I can't wait for that. When he
comes to Salt Lake, because I've been watching those Strava segments. Elevation for Brandon Lyons, 12
like
feet,
3 feet,
miles, 375.
That's like up the stairs out of the apartment.
Yeah, I literally think that's coming in and out of my driveway. But no, I'm looking forward to some climbing, and then also some dry climate. That is the one thing that when I moved here, I'm like, oh my gosh, the humidity is crazy.
Brandon, Sean, questions?
Yeah, Brandon, I didn't realize, was 2018 your first CAF year?
It would have been
MDC?
2017.
2017. So 2018 was your first or second. Okay.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
deal.
That was whenever you were there, 2018, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I was going to
exactly.
say, no one was questioning if you could make it all those miles that year.
Yeah.
We all knew.
Yeah. That one, I at least had a year under my belt there, and then a full year of training. So, was ready to go there. But the first year it presented its own challenges, but.
All
Brandon,
I know is, oh, sorry, Kristie, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say, all I know is when we were on that first day together, and it was 100 and something miles right into Monterey, I think it was. And we're cruising down. I don't remember which highway it was, but we just entered a tunnel, and you were with Dean. And I'm watching you cruise into this tunnel going, I don't know, 55, 60, however fast you were going into that tunnel. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's going to die. I was so scared. And I was like, should I go super tuck and get behind him, or what should I do? It was unbelievable. So you guys have something to behold when you see Brandon descend anything. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, the bike itself is just so aerodynamic, right? So it's like any type of hill, you just let go of the brakes and you're just cruising. But no, I mean, I definitely remember that first day. That was, I think that was that the prologue?
Yes,
day?
It was the prologue.
Yeah,
that was some prologue.
Yeah, it was something like close to like 130 miles. I think that was the longest ride I had done to date. But no, I remember going through that tunnel, and I always remember going. It was as we were getting towards the end. I think there was like 5 of us that were together. We were like going through like that little section of like farmland. I always like can like envision it in my head of kind of running through there. But no, that was such an awesome way to start that week.
Yeah, absolutely.
The prologue was amazing. Brandon, so many of the Mi Duole riders are passionate about cycling because they have been a large part of their life. I mean, Sean's probably the exception, would you guys say? And so for somebody like you who, you didn't grow up in cycling, by your own admission, you showed up at this Marine Corps marathon and didn't even know how to change a flat. Do you think cycling is a home for people as they leave college athletics, even as able-bodied cyclists, that they can find that competition again?
Yeah, I think so. And I honestly think it's a great opportunity, right? So I think once an athlete, you're always an athlete, right? Regardless of what happens. So, being in college athletics, it was looking for that next, really thing just to occupy me and just keep my fitness up. Right. So, and unless you're going pro or into a semi-pro league, right, it's like, what opportunities are there to get active again, right? Through like little rec leagues. Yeah. But I think a lot of people are going to look for that next, fitness challenge, right? Whether it's a marathon, whether it's running, right, or, trail running, whatever it may be. But, I think cycling is an awesome opportunity. And for me, to me, it came out of nowhere. But I definitely think it's a home, and it's such a close knit community. Once you're a cyclist, right, it's like everyone is together. So no, I think it's a great opportunity to continue your athletic, prowess coming out of college athletics.
I do need to know what your favorite cookie is.
Oh boy.
I think that's what I'm most excited about is like, I see your Instagram feed.
Choose wisely, Brandon.
And all I want to do is just eat. So no, I'm looking forward to burning it out through the miles so I can just enjoy some of these sweets.
I agree.
Hey, we always kind of as we if we're gonna wrap up, I'll pick on Kristie and Brandon, but one thing we've learned is that everybody that we bring on, it's always fun to ask, what piece of advice would you give to this team, whether it's life advice or cycle advice or just anything that kind of comes to your mind that you would share that you've learned over your life in sports. Because you have a huge array of listeners here, people from all ages and abilities listening. Kristie, you have participated in this world for a long time. What have you seen or learned that you could share that might be worthwhile?
You're going to make me pick just one, and the timing of this is tricky. I think Sean has already shared this, and I alluded to it earlier. We talk about being part of a community, whether that's a community in our homes, in a community in our cycling club, in our community of coworkers and colleagues. And that concept of pedal it forward is something that we must do to contribute to our community. I call it the Goldilocks rule of cycling. And I've applied it in business. In fact, I gave the same advice in an interview just a couple weeks ago. I think you should spend time with 3 groups of people. If we're talking about on the bike, a couple days a week, you need to go out and ride with people who are of your equal ability to maintain your strength. And you need to do that in business. You need to surround yourself with people of equal caliber, and church and home and all those things. And then once a week, you need to go out and get your butt kicked by somebody who's significantly stronger than you, because they know things you don't. You need to learn from someone who's better than you. And in many cases, that education involves some form of your ego being knocked down a few notches.
Nice.
Right? But finally, the third group that you really need to spend time with is those people that you can teach. Because someone brought you into the sport, someone brought you into your career, someone brought you into your family. And the opportunity that you can give them with the knowledge and service that you can offer them. My dad taught me to ride a bike. At 44, he had triple bypass surgery, and he taught me to ride a bike again, is what we say in my family. He taught me once when I was a kid. And then in my early 20s, I got on a bike again because of my dad. And I remember he used to yell and say, "Get behind me and draft. You're never going to go fast if you don't get behind me and draft. You know, go look for a guy who has calves bigger than mine and then get behind him and draft." You know, he took the time to teach me. And I'm sure all of you that are listening to this have a mentor that took time with you. You owe somebody else that. Nice. Just as much as you owe getting your butt kicked, and just as much as you owe going out and having a good time. That Goldilocks rule and pedaling it forward is huge for me.
I love that. So wise. Thank you, Kristie. Brandon?
Yeah, for me, it's very difficult to come down to one that has, impacted my life so much. But it was really, being comfortable in the uncomfortable, right? Taking those risks and taking those chances. There were so many, parts of my journey, following my injury that at that point it seemed, maybe difficult or seemed impossible, but it was taking that chance when, again, people may have put limits, on me, right? I may have put limits on myself, but it was, kind of stepping out of that fear and just taking a chance, right? I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen kind of mentality. And, so much good has come from those opportunities where I've, tried to take that risk, whether it was, trying to get out and join Team USA at that time when I was going through this, had never raced in a sanctioned cycling race before, had never, been a part of Team USA, was not even close to qualifying, but I just thought, why not reach out to the team? They were looking for developmental athletes. What's the worst that can happen? Right. Fortunately enough, they saw potential in me and, gave me an opportunity, which then spiraled down to becoming a national team member and, winning a world championship medal. And, the rest is history and other things as well within my professional career. Coming back from my injury of, okay, I want to still continue on in my career at Ernst & Young, how was I going to be able to do it? I wasn't going to be able to, live that consultant lifestyle of being on the road Sunday through Thursday, coming out of an injury. And I thought I was going to have to, put a halt to my career and lose my job. But, having those difficult conversations with, my boss and other leaders and, finding a way to make it work. So a lot of it was some of the best, parts of my life have come through these difficult decisions that I made to, just take a risk and see what happens.
Very cool. Thank you to everybody. I think as we wrap, Sean, will you mind taking the next step here and inviting everybody to what you've got planned, you and Kristie and Brandon?
You bet. Absolutely. So beginning with the 19th of August, 6 p.m., it's a Thursday evening, we're having what's called the Cupcake Challenge, Cupcake Climb. And we are going to meet at Draper Park in Sandy. And all we ask you to do is come. It's going to be a great event. We're going to have cupcakes. We're going to introduce people. They'll be able to get to ride with Brandon and see some of our great friends in the community. And we'll have a lot of different teams represented. We'll be doing a climb, basically leaving Draper Park, neutral climb to roll out till we get to Traverse. And then we'll climb that up to the top of Suncrest, down the backside, and then back up from the south side and finish at the top. That's where we will call your Strava segment done. And that way everybody can kind of get the Strava segment in, and then we'll compare them all and see how we all did as we roll back to Draper Park for kind of a little festivities and wrap up and see everybody there. So that'll be on the 19th. We're excited to do it. And we'll, in honor of the Duole championship this last weekend, winning the team award, we're going to continue something on. And I've already talked to some of the other team heads, and we're going to do a team challenge as well. So we'll see some of our friends from other teams there as well. So it should be a great event. I'm excited. Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
I just can't wait to see who wins best costume for bibs only.
Nice. Bib. Yes. I'm going to wear, you know what I've always wanted to do is wear a salmon outfit and ride the race course backwards. I'll pass you guys. We'll like cross.
I like
Fantastic.
it.
And Brandon is coming. Like you're bringing him up. We are going to, this is awesome. Okay. Very cool.
No, it's going to be great. We're going to have, go ahead, Kristie.
There's no special points if you do the whole ride with a front flat tire like Brandon did the second half of the marathon.
That's not happening. I got tubeless now, so I'm ready to go.
You've got a little bit better bike now too, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Very cool. All right. Well, I'll post all the links. I'll post all links to Brandon's Facebook page or Instagram page. So you can connect with him. Connect with him on his 24-hour record attempts. I know he's got donations there, and to watch that journey, as well as more information that's coming out about our August 19th gathering and the way we can support CAF. So anything else before we wrap up? You guys are awesome. This has been so cool. Brandon, your story is awesome, man. You're an inspiration. I'm thankful you come and share it with us. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right. Well, back to our real jobs. This has been fun while it's lasted.
Back to our real jobs. In 17 days, we'll all be together climbing, and I can't wait.
Yep.
I can't
back
wait
in the
either.
mountains. Yes.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you soon.